Okay. So we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into why did he fail to unite Africa? Because these folks keep saying it's FBA's fault why Africa cannot be united, right? They keep saying it. So I'm like, well, was FBA around when your leader was around in Africa? Huh? Was FBA around? Did FBA stop Nkrumah, okay, from uniting Africa? So what did stop Nkrumah from uniting Africa? If it wasn't us, then who was it? Was it himself? Was it other Africans who wouldn't get on code? One of those is true. Started Kwanzaa. All right. So let's look at this guy, Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah. He got a twister name. You did Nkrumah. I still can't say the damn thing. Oh shit. My tabs reset. So now they about to play some crazy videos. Okay, so this is an update. Let's talk about this right here. This is a FBA News and Update.
Thanks for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Christina Evans. Again, we do want to continue to cover some of these top stories that we're going to be watching. Putting this up on your screen there from Reuters, as tomorrow is going to be a very big day for the Supreme Court. They're going to be weighing whether or not President Trump's executive order seeking to end birthright citizenship is going to withstand constitutional and legal muster. Of course, this is a case that tests a key aspect of the president's second-term immigration agenda. This case, known as Trump versus Barbara, questions if President Trump's order that was issued back on his first day back in the White House is in violation of the 14th Amendment's Citizenship Clause and federal immigration law. So to talk a lot more about what we may hear from the court tomorrow, I'd like to bring in immigration attorney Sushant Modi. Sushant, thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now from Fox.
Hi, thanks for having me back on, Christina. Good to see you.
Of course, there's so much to unpack, though, with a conversation like this. Very big day for the Supreme Court tomorrow. But there might be folks at home who have been talking or maybe even listening into those conversations about birthright citizenship who aren't exactly clear on what that is and it's tied to the 14th Amendment. Can you break that down for us first?
Sure. So the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, it was ratified in 1868. So to give us an idea of this, what it says is all persons born in the United States, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are U.S. citizens. And so the key element here is, what does it mean to be subject to the jurisdiction thereof? And that's the key point that the Supreme Court is going to look at. Now, historically speaking, just to take a step back, everyone born in the United States has been deemed to be a U.S. citizen, except for very, very limited or narrow exceptions. Think of like diplomats, for example, born here aren't U.S. citizens, or Native American Indians. But other than that, historically speaking, for over a century, over 125 years, it's generally been the rule that if you're born in the United States, you're a U.S. citizen, despite your parents' immigration status.
All right, we certainly appreciate you breaking that down, because that is the center of this entire discussion. And Sushant, when it comes to tomorrow, the Supreme Court, they're going to be hearing these oral arguments. What's at the center of this when the court is being asked to decide? What's the specific legal question there?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. It's going to be that specific statement of how the Supreme Court interprets subject to this jurisdiction thereof. I mean, you know, even if we just look at a common example of it, it doesn't talk about the plain language of the U.S. Constitution. It doesn't talk about anything related to the parents. So it doesn't say, you know, subject to the parents being permanently living here. So if we look at like the plain language reading of it, which a lot of conservative justices do, it doesn't speak about the parents' domicile. And then, of course, there's the famous ARC case that you had posted earlier. And that's the seminal case. That's the crucial case that's interpreted that provision of the 14th Amendment.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was a landmark case that happened back in the 1800s, if I'm not mistaken. So how is that going to tie in to some of the arguments that are likely to happen tomorrow?
That's exactly right. It was in 1898, to give us a historical example, because this is what the Supreme Court's looking at. It was the first major case to interpret the 14th Amendment, and it was only a merely 30 years after the 14th Amendment was ratified. So this is the way our jurisprudence works, is the Supreme Court's going to look at what were the framers' intent. And in that case, in the Art case, what happened was it was not during a good time of U.S. history. It was during the Chinese Exclusion Act. So there's a lot of racial discrimination against Chinese nationals at the time. And in fact, that act didn't allow Chinese nationals to become U.S. citizens. In the Art case, it was an individual that was born to two Chinese national parents. And it had gone up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court had said, no, that he was still a U.S. citizen, even though he was born to Chinese parents, and even with the Chinese Exclusion Act during that, again, not good time in U.S. history. And so that's the seminal case that's going to be looked at. Now, on the other side of the equation, the Trump administration is saying, well, his parents were domiciled, meaning they were like permanently living in the U.S. Now, the concept of permanent residents, like green card holders, Christina, that didn't exist in 1898. So this idea of like how much presence do the parents have to be in the United States wasn't even looked at much with the Art case. It was really, we're looking at the children. Are the children, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, I think, not what the parents that is, versus the Trump administration in their executive order is trying to say, okay, well, the parents, status should be looked at to determine if someone's a U.S. citizen, but that's never been ruled on before. And over a century, that's not how it's been applied when someone's born in the U.S.
That is interesting as you're breaking down the history versus what we're looking at now. And so, Susham, let's talk about the Supreme Court and its makeup as we're taking a live look there at the building. We do, of course, know that the justices on there at this point are leaning in a more conservative direction. Many of them actually pointed by President Trump himself. So when it comes to looking at
not, Christina, and actually, it's interesting because this is uncertain. They actually lean to like a conservative interpretation of the Constitution, like the plain language reading I was mentioning earlier. So again, the plain language of the Constitution doesn't talk anything about the parent. Amendment. Neither the first case, the Art case. So saying that maybe they're looking at the original, so it might have the opposite effect. It might actually rule constitutional.
It'll be interesting to see how all of this plays out. And so, Susham, I have to ask you, what are some of the realistic possible rulings that the court could ultimately bring down? It doesn't always have to be plain and straight. So what could we be seeing once that decision is made?
I think they are actually going to rule on the merits. So when I had been on your program earlier, they were just looking at whether it could be on hold or not, like an injunction versus a class action. This is actually going to go to the merits. Like, does the 14th Amendment state that, the Trump administration's executive order looking at the parents in U.S. birth is unconstitutional? So I do think the Supreme Court's going to have to make a ruling on the actual substance of individuals born in the United States. Personally, and as you know, I used to be a law professor. I think that this is going to be deemed unconstitutional, President Trump's executive order, that is. And so, and if it's not, if we had to take the other scenario, which I don't think is likely, I think the Supreme Court's going to determine that the executive order is unconstitutional. But in the scenario that the executive order is upheld, there's going to be a lot of things that we don't know how the outcome is going to be. So all those individuals that are born here in the United States, Christina, what is their status? They were born here, they've been raised here, they don't have citizenship or status in another country. So what happens to them? Do they become stateless? Now, new individuals that are born here, how are hospitals supposed to look into the parents' heritage and status? So it's going to create a bunch of other issues if it's deemed constitutional. Again, I don't think that's a scenario. I think it'll be deemed unconstitutional. And then the last thing I would say, Christina, is this could affect a lot of people. Some studies say about 250,000 individuals born in the United States per year.
I think that'll be interesting. And I like the way that you were able to talk about the number that's related to this case and why so many people are paying attention to what the Supreme Court ultimately will decide on this. And so lastly, before I let you go, Shusham, I have to ask you, would this decision possibly open the door to challenges on other constitutional rights and interpretations? Is that a possibility?
I don't think so, Christina. And the reason why is just like we've been looking at this case, like historically, what was the original intent on the 14th Amendment, and then 30 years later with specifically the ARC case, the Supreme Court really wants to limit individual analysis on each case. Like, what is the intent on that specific rule? So I don't think this decision will have an impact on other areas like TPS or like the tariffs decision that already came out by the Supreme Court. So I think it'll be limited to this specific issue.
All right, so it'll certainly be interesting and something that we're going to watch and monitor here on Live Now from Fox. As always, we appreciate immigration attorney Susham Modi for joining us here today. Thanks so much, Susham.
Thanks for having me.
All right. All right. Everybody who was talking trash, they got their fingers crossed right now. They got their fingers crossed. Oh my God. Everybody who's talking trash got their fingers crossed. Well, all the immigrants. All right. Okay, so what you think about that? What you think about what you just heard? Now I see spirit love. They said the word parents was never there. They said the word parents was never there. Yeah, that's crazy. See spirit. See spirit. See spirit said, "Sorry, I can't see illegal entry in our country as something to fight about. Visas and the like are meant to be temporary. Then folks decide they get to stay in our country illegally, like yeah, forever. Like they just not gonna leave. Like this, just my country, punk. Like they're deboing us. It's my country, punk. All right. So Kwame Nkrumah, right? He's one of those guys where he had a huge vision, like Marcus Garvey, like Dr. Umar Johnson, right? And always the political reality is even bigger. What did Kwame Nkrumah want? He wanted a United States of Africa, right? That's what he wanted. And yo, family, why do these scammers always have this? Why do they always go for the first round knockout? All these scammers want to be Mike Tyson instead of Floyd Mayweather, as far as like winning the match. They want a first round knockout. They don't want to go 12 rounds. And I'll tell you why. Because real work takes time. It takes time for the baby to grow. All right. It takes time when you grow plants. Anything you ever grew, anything you ever built, and you watched it from the starting point to where you wanted it or close enough, it took time. And if you ever try it again, it'll take the same time, a little bit quicker maybe, but around the same time. It's never going to be like that, a snap. Never. Okay? It's never going to be a snap of the finger. So scammers, they want quick cash. So they're going to always sell you a dream where you just get it fast, always. Because people are not moved with a dream, right? A get rich scheme, a get unity scheme, get a bunch of ships from to get to Liberia, a school for black boys, right? Nobody wants to really invest in that when you tell them, hey, it's going to take 12 years, but I got you. Yeah, I'm sure some people are going to invest, but it's going to be slow money because they say, well, because my nah, I'm good. It won't be for things like that. This is why scammers they want the money now. They don't want to work on it. And then the longer a scammer work on it, the more likely they'll be caught. You feel me? Are going to be what you expect. They're going to be expected. You expect not to get a significant gain at all anytime soon. It's for the future. Right. So Kwame Nkrumah fits that scam microwave mentality. Think big to get no results. He want to unite 54 countries, billions of people. Okay? So obviously when he tried to pitch that to other African leaders, they like, yo, kick rocks. Okay. So let me go here with it. So after independence, this is by the way, this period is called the Pan-African liberation movement of the 1960s. So he was part of it, right? So after independence, African leaders, what happened to them? They split into two thought of minds, right? So Nkrumah, let's call it Nkrumah camp and the other opposing camp. So Nkrumah camp, his camp, the radicals, right? Casablanca group. You got Ghana, Nkrumah. You got Guinea, Sekou Touré, these Tourés. You got Mali, Modibo Keita, right? And you got Egypt, Nasser, right? Their belief was immediate political union, one army, one currency, one foreign policy. That's what they thought. So it's like, well, shit, if y'all just think that, the four of you, just go do it. You don't need the other 54 countries. But you see how this works, family? They want everybody. It's like, yo, why don't you get it popping somewhere and then extend? Nope. Then you had the opposing camps. You had the Monrovia group, right? Monrovia, Liberia, right? So you got Nigeria, Liberia, Ethiopia, Senegal, and most of Francophone Africa. Got it. So they wanted to keep national sovereignty. They didn't want to unite. They wanted to be independent and different. They wanted to delineate. They believe they'll cooperate, but it'll be slowly. They wanted no Central African government. They wanted no smoke with that. So Nkrumah said, unite now or be recolonized. Right? This is what he said. This is your leader. This is who the African and Pan-Africans big up. He said, unite now or be recolonized. So yes. He said that. He said he's going to do the recolonize. Yes. He said that. Do anybody know about that? Okay. Anything know about that history? Where he said, unite now, or he's going to start the recolonization. So he's going to be the colonizer of Africa, the new one. It's no shock to us. Obviously, the other leaders said, stop it, bro. You know, you are a dictator. Okay, so what ended up happening? Nkrumah wanted to be the leader of Africa. Oh shit. I got that I was joking. He's on his Umar stuff. He's on his old Prince of Pan-Africanism. Yes. My man wanted to be the leader of Africa, and he wanted Ghana to be the center of power. All right. Now, obviously, that's what others thought about him. Like, he didn't say that about himself. That's what others took from him when he started talking this unite now, be recolonized. Others felt like he just wants to be the leader. He want to be centered, right? And he wants Ghana to be the center of power, the hub. You know, countries like Nigeria and bigger population countries, right? The regional rivals. So no, Africa was not economically aligned. Some countries tied to France, Frank CFA system. Some tied to Britain, right? Some socialists like Nkrumah leaning, all right? Then you got other capitalists. So obviously you can't unify economies that don't match. So again, just a fantasy. Nkrumah leaned socialist. He was very Soviet friendly. Who's surprised? Unite now and be recolonized, but he loves that zaddy over there in Eastern Europe, the Soviet. So no, the U.S. and Western powers had issues with this guy. Once you start to play with the Soviet Union, and once you start playing with the Soviet Union, you know you're asking for smoke from the Western powers. You know, and also some African leaders align with the West. So you're being Soviet friendly, and other African countries are being West friendly. Is going to be a problem. You're never going to unite Africa that way. Most African countries had just gained independence, so they was flexing, they was loving being by themselves. They were politically fragile, and they were trying to stabilize internally. So leaders were thinking, why would I give up my power when my country isn't even stable yet? You dig? We're unstable atoms. And so they felt like he was finessing. They're like, oh, you got your stuff together. We don't. So we unite now. We're relying on you, and you win everybody's heart and minds and souls. And next thing I know is a coup on me, led by you. Right? So 1960s. Think about this. Coups were everywhere. Even Nkrumah himself. He was overthrown in 1966 while abroad. When he left, he had a coup come and say, all right, bro, don't come back. Okay, so that alone showed his vision didn't even full security at home. My man left to handle some business and got overthrown. But he wants to unite Africa. And they're like, man, you don't get up out of here, man. So yeah, they seen the guy as a dictator. Africa seen him as a dictator. His own people seen him as a dictator. All right, that's because he was. He led Ghana to independence in 1957. He was a popular mass leader. He was seen as a liberator through Pan-Africans. But here's the fact. Here's the ugly truth. He did things that raised red flags. He did things. Okay. He had a one-party state. Ghana became a one-party state. And Nkrumah was the president for life. Like, yo, y'all gotta stop with these African leaders. And Nkrumah, they had a one-party state. Ain't no voting him out. That's it. You gotta kick him out. You gotta overthrow him. He playing that life, that Kwame Ture life. Now, ain't no voting Kwame Ture out. You gotta overthrow him. You want him out? You gotta do a regime change on your own. Look what he did. Look what Nkrumah, this dictator, did in 1958. So he allowed jailed opponents without trial. Right. It was called the Preventative Detention Act of 1958. Right. So guess who he would lock up? Anybody who spoke against him. If you had an opinion that wasn't favoring him, you were in jail, no trial. Yeah, what did he say about me? Yo, what? Wait, what did he say? Lock him up. I ain't say that. Yo, he lying. Lock him up. Lock him up. You're gonna get 30 years. You shouldn't have said that. So, of course, that way he would suppress opposition. He controlled the media. You dig? So, of course, he made himself look great, bigger than when he was, smarter than when he was. You know, and I'm sure he acted like Ghana was producing electric cars at that time. All type of lies was coming out of his propaganda machine. Okay, so now he was promoted as, I'm about to botch this word right here. Okay, let me see if I can get AI to say it. Yes, yes. He was on his Prince of Pan-African stuff. He was on his Garvey stuff. I'm gonna rule the world type. Yeah, nah, he was on that. He's the next, the next in line, the King of David type. Nah, he was on that. Let me see if I get something. How can I pronounce the word before I blow it? Okay, let's see if I can get AI to say it. Let's see. This is what he was regarded as. Okay. All right. Any day now. Okay. Let's get out of that one. I thought that was going to play it. Come on, man. Get out of there. You're trying to sell me some stuff. So I just can't leave, huh? Hey, these scamming websites, man. Dude, just get me out of there. I changed my mind. Damn. Man, I should have just went here. I should have just went to Oxford. Man. Okay. This is like there's different ways to pronounce it. Let's do the West African English. You heard that?
Osayefo.
Here's the English
Osajefo.
way. And here's the British English way.
FAIL.
But this is the West African way to pronounce it. Okay, now what is that? What is Osayefo? Osayefo is his way of his African way to say he's Jesus. All right, that's the best way I can put it. Osayefo is his way to say he's Jesus. This is why he's going to rule forever, like Jesus. Okay, so he was the central figure of the entire nation. He was a dictator in every sense of the definition and every sense of the word. So why do Pan-Africans and tethers big this guy up like he was this great leader? Got to ask yourself that, family. Yo, they be in their own way. Okay. So, 227 Kemet, bro. Just Google it, my guy. Whatever I'm saying, yo, you got the copy. I'm not gonna. I'm sharing my thumbnail. I want you to look at the thumbnail as I read. Nobody want to read. I did the read along thing. Nobody like that. Everybody be leaving. And when you become a content creator, you kind of did everything you know was best for your channel. The thumbnail is a visual pleasing thing to look at. Okay, now the thumbnail represents this guy. Remember, he wanted a one African state. So when he's faced to look at all these different countries, 54 different countries, that's why he his dream he knew would never come true. All right. So, but he was a dictator. Y'all just can Google that. Like, there's some things I'll share when I believe is unbelievable, right? Like I said, I'm a YouTube journalist. I'm an educator also. So I know how to source up and not. When something is like unbelievable, I'll share it. Or if I'm debunking somebody because they disagree with me, I'll share it. But this is documented history, 227 Kemet. I don't got to share documented history, right? I don't got to source up when I say pharaohs were in Egypt. All right. Or Muslims be in Morocco or whatever. I ain't got to source that up. That's established history, documented history. Okay, so a lot of rulers in Africa rule similar to him, like the dictator stuff. But this is the language that he used to run Ghana is the same language Ibrahim Traoré uses to run Burkina Faso and to justify the one party nation. By the way, almost everything he's doing, family, just look up Ibrahim Traoré. He's doing the same thing. So he said we're going to do a one party system. All right. Look, this is why I don't have to share my screen, man. When I say these things are established facts, they're established facts. Look, bro. In 1964, a constitutional amendment made Ghana a one-party state, with Nkrumah as president for life of both the nation and its party. Right, that's it. I'm not going to do that no more. Like my research is thorough. If I say it, it's true. Okay, or he justified this one-party nation, this dictatorship, by saying it was necessary to protect the revolution and unity. Same jargon that Ibrahim Traoré uses. Um, he wanted a stronger. He wanted to unite Africa, right? He understood that fragmentation makes Africa vulnerable, but it was inevitable, my guy. He acknowledged neocolonialism as a real thing, right? Um, but where he fell apart was he tried to rush unity. As soon as they got the independence, everybody, but the unity didn't make any sense. The dude wasn't a good example. Unite or be recolonized. I don't think that's a slogan to the runoff. You dig? To like try to unite Africa. A227 Kemet. He didn't build trust with other leaders. They didn't trust the guy. He centralized too much power, and he ignored political realities of other nations, like other nations were capitalists and this and that. He didn't give it in because he knew that he was going to make them all communists. So he's like, all right, whatever you are, I don't care. You basically come as you are, unite as you are. Nah, but this is a capitalist. It's okay. Unite as you are. Come, unite as you are. So the reality is he failed because he tried to force unity without political alignment, trust, or stability. Okay. Africa, the other African leaders rejected Nkrumah because he wanted to be the leader, the prince of Pan-Africanism. The what did Garvey say what he was? The ruler of some dumb shit. Okay. So everything he's doing now, with everything he did then, Africa trying to unite now through the African Union are doing the opposite of him. Okay, so don't forget, Nkrumah wanted Africa to unite now, not later. He wanted one continental government, one military command, one foreign policy, one currency, and centralized planning for development. All right, he believed Africa must unite quickly or remain weak, divided, and exploited. Right. He was paranoid. He believed former colonial powers would keep control through fragmentation. He believes small African states are easy to manipulate. All right. Obviously, other leaders disagreed. Now, today, African leaders today, for the most part, they believe in the opposite of him. They believe in national sovereignty first. Don't Nkrumah sound like these Pan Africans? Hey, Migas, let's all unite. We like, no, man, handle your home first. We're saying exactly what those people said at that time. towards that mentality. Today, these tethers in Pan-African, yo, let's unite. We like, yo, now I go fix your home first, guy. Unite with your neighbors first. Get those tribes out the way, man. Become one. No more tribes. Y'all just Nigerian. Yeah, you're no longer Nigerian Igbo, Nigerian Hausa, Ghanaian, Asante, Zimbabwean, Shona tribe. No, y'all all just Zimbabwean. Y'all all just Nigerian, Ghanaian. No more tribes. Y'all do that. Y'all own something. The Caribbean, you're no different. You guys need to just be West Indian. No more Jamaican, Trinidadian, this and that. Y'all all need to be West Indian. Just like we're all over here Black American. We're all FBA, ADOS, you dig, Freeman. But the lineage, like we all are coming together based on our lineage affiliation. Okay, so we're coming together just on that. You guys got to do the same thing. Otherwise, y'all just a modern day Kwame Nkrumah dictator. And you are not to be taken seriously. So the AU, the OAU, who turned to AU thought differently. They said, nope, national sovereignty first, sound like us. Slow cooperation, that means slowly we will get with y'all, but we want to monitor y'all, what y'all doing, because we don't trust y'all. And they said, no central authority. That ain't happening. All right. So, so 1963, OAU said loose cooperation, no real enforcement power, don't interfere policy, right? And now, who they are now, they're the African Union. And today, they are on peacekeeping missions, right? Continental institutions and policy coordination. All right. They do not right now have a federal government for those different African nations. Yeah, so that is just the history of your man. Africa's Africa. Africa, some people believe, and some leaders believe, Africa was never intended to unite as one. They really believe that they should be like Europe. You got France, who's independent of Netherlands, who's independent of Ireland, who's independent of over here and over here, and they're not trying to be one, like that. Because people believe it's not realistic. So all of this talk, we must all unite talk, that's an unrealistic thought. And it needs not to be taken seriously. We need to ignore people like that and just be great. Okay. If you're Nigerian, stop scamming and just be great. Right? If you from the island, just be great. And then maybe somebody want to link up with you. Say, hey man, what's up with what you got going on over there? What's up, man? We could just be great. Stay in your homeland. If you leave your homeland, let it be temporarily. You dig, like the way it's supposed to be. Yeah, the Islamic countries, man. I ain't even dealing with them. They got to work out their own issues. Okay. Oh, 8227. You were supposed to research some stuff I gave you, my guy. Um, and like he was acting like the research was so hard. He had bounced, by the way. But he owed me another apology. He apologized before. He thought African American was an old term. And he came back. I ain't gonna lie. He did come back and confess. I was right. He was wrong. You dig? But I be trying to save people from these apologies. Like, dude, check your ego at the door, man. and you ain't gotta keep apologizing. First class citizen said Burkina Faso are in bed with Russians and Chinese. In my opinion, he just exchanged one colonizer, the French, with another colonizer. Yeah, he did, but worse because Russia doesn't do the same things that the French did. Like the French was interested and involved in Burkina Faso political affairs, like how they treat their people and all that, female vaginal, they chopping stuff off. The French would be like, hell no, 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 you can't do that. That's inhumane. Russia, like they interfered in things like that. Um, like, that's wrong. Yeah, what's up, man? We gotta talk. Russia don't give a damn. Like, Burkina Faso could be doing public hangings. Burkina, they could be doing public hangings amongst the Burkina Bays, and Russia don't give a goddamn. They don't care about no humanitarian. And they like, yo, that's on y'all. We're gonna supply you with this. Give us that. So, in my opinion, they were better off with the French. You just got to negotiate better. That's all. But to run to Europe, to run to East Europe to the Russians, I think that was a coward move. Like, why choose anybody? You dig? Why not work with the Russians, see what they got, work with the French, see what they got going on, work with like why always choose one over the other? Like work with everybody. Worried about freedom of speech when you start. Add the US too. They're signing agreements with us too. See how they treat them? Yeah, man. Yeah. So going forward, family, when these folks bring up Burkina Faso, when they bring up, um, we want to just say, hey, man, Ibn Ture a modern day Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah was a modern day Marcus Garvey. You dig? We got the Umar in there somewhere. Yeah, but like these unite or die, unite black people, Africans all the world got unite. Like all that talk is garbage, family. That's scammer talk. Everybody got to unite. Yo, that's why we be like, yo, go unite with yourselves first, man. Like, so if we only go with you, it's all or nothing. Like, stop, stupid talk. You Africans, you want to unite so bad, go holler at the islands. Show us, it can be done. No, we need you niggas involved. No, you guys just go do it. You don't need us. You go do it. Show us it can be done. Show us. We're not convinced. All right, family. I'm gonna check. It's 12 o'clock. What I'm gonna eat? What I'm gonna eat? I gotta eat something. All right, let me check out right now. Let's see what's going on in the net. I go live shortly again. I think. Hopefully, let me ops. Any ops came to and said, you know what I mean, where my ops at? Supposed to be hollering at me. Yeah, these guys be afraid to have a small conversation with me. Like, God damn. Where'd 227 go? My man hauled ass when I addressed him. Show the screen so you can see what I'm reading. Bro, you can just Google it. Like, I just Googled something to fly. It checked out. Dude, it's not that. Yeah, I told somebody, I was like, yo, man, what's nah, I ain't gonna say it live. All right. Let me see what's over here. Yeah, nobody want to smoke. All right, family, I'm out of here. I'm gonna check out, see what everybody's got going on, other channels, see what they're talking about. See if we can do a reaction off theirs. All right, family, peace. Damn, this car, yo, this dude car is dripping crazy oil. God damn. Wow. All right, fam. Till next time, peace. I ain't got much to talk about right now. I've been up early. Just wanted to spin the block on Garvey. I did that. We out. Peace.